Hello, DPP Community. Thank you for tuning into the 4TheRecord podcast. 4TheRecord is a digital product passport consultancy agency that helps institutions and industry players to develop and implement their DPP strategy. Today, I'm speaking with Aileen Ryan. She's the president and CEO of the RAIN RFID Alliance. I'm talking with her about her background, how RFID chips are used in the context of digital product passports, for example, in the upstream, where products are produced along the supply chain, during the life cycle, where chips are used to enable a product as a service, and of course, at the important stage of the end of life period of the product, where it is sorted for recycling, reuse, and repurpose, for example, in the area of textiles, battery cells, tires, plastics, and other product categories. At the end, she gives us an outlook of where the RAIN RFID Alliance will develop in the future. I wish you an informative entertainment. Welcome to the podcast Digital Product Passport Insights. My name is Susanne Gut-Erlowski, and I'm founder of 4TheRecord.io, a digital product passport consulting agency. I'm delighted to welcome our guest today, who is one of the leading women in engineering, the wonderful president and CEO of the RAIN RFID Alliance, Aileen Ryan. Welcome, Aileen. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Suzanne. I'm really delighted to be here. Thank you.
Aileen, for the people that don't know you, please describe your educational background maybe and your journey that led you to the position in the RAIN RFID Alliance.
Sure, thank you. So you'll probably hear from my accent, I'm originally Irish and I grew up in Ireland, and I went to university in Ireland to study engineering. And in my first year of engineering, we had 12 women out of a total of 120 in the engineering cohort. And I was hugely surprised actually to find that we were a very unusual year, with 10% of the cohort of students being female. The years behind us, and actually the years before us, all were around 2 or 3 women in the cohort of 120. And interestingly, what had happened in my year was it happened that there was a special government initiative, which they called the Year of Women in Engineering in Ireland. And so engineering as a profession was kind of highlighted to a lot of female students who were at that point of deciding on career choices. So I chose engineering, and I've spent my entire career in engineering. I originally studied electrical engineering, and then I did a master's in computer science, and the early part of my career was spent in the software industry, primarily in the telecommunications environment. From there, I then moved into the semiconductor environment, where I joined a Cambridge-based startup who was producing sensor-like IP, so semiconductor IP, that was used to detect anomalous behavior on chips at clock speed. And that data was used to make decisions super fast. So in areas where fast decisions were critical, like safety critical applications or cybersecurity applications, our IP was really a game changer. And what I really loved about that experience was it combined both gathering data from the source, so from the semiconductor, and then using that data to make informed decisions about what do we do now? This has happened, so what do we do? And that when that company was acquired in 2020, and I had finished my period of time with that company, I was approached about the opportunity with the RAIN Alliance. And actually, it seemed like a perfect blend of taking what I had done before, which was producing data at source and using that data to inform business decisions downstream, and that's exactly what Rain RFID is used for. So it's game changing in its simplicity. It's got tons and tons of use cases, which we'll get into later on, including very enormous sustainability applications and benefits, which is very important to me personally, and I guess important to the planet, and that's why Digital Product Passport is such an important initiative as well. So
Absolutely.
yes, so that's my background really, and the reason why the Rain Alliance is a fascinating next step for me in my career.
Yeah. And informed decisions is also something that we hear very often together with digital product passports, right? We want also consumers, not only businesses, but also consumers to make informed decisions with the information they can get through the digital product passport. So you kind of stayed at this kind of topic, which is so important for us today. So not everyone knows the Rain Alliance. Aileen, can you maybe describe a little bit what the Rain Alliance is? Who are the members? What are your main goals as the Rain Alliance? Probably also the participating industries, because that's also super relevant for our digital product passport topic.
Yeah, okay. So Rain RFID is a particular form of RFID where you have this concept of a rain tag, and I'll describe that in maybe a little bit later on. But a rain tag is attached to a thing, and a thing can be literally anything that you can imagine, right? And a rain tag is passive, so it doesn't have a battery or any power source. It's really tiny, so almost invisible actually to the naked eye. So in fact, we're surrounded by rain tags all the time, but we don't know it. So it's kind of this invisible technology that's used as an enabler for a lot of businesses that we're surrounded by, but we're largely, as consumers, unaware that it even exists. And rain tags are read by readers, which have different form factors. And those readers can read within a many meter range. So in theory, potentially even up to 20 meters, not always that in practice, depending on the environment. And these readers can read many hundreds of rain tags virtually in real time without direct line of sight. So you can rapidly know with very high accuracy all of the tagged items that you're interested in within a certain location. So that's
used, for example, in storage, or kind of what are the use cases for this particular
so the original use case is probably I would say in inventory management. So instead of having to manually scan item by item by item and enter that data into some kind of a database in the back end, you just use a rain reader, and it very quickly can tell you the thousands of things that are in this room at this point in time with amazing detail, right? So it can tell you in a retail application, for example, I have 10 red t-shirts in size 10 and I have 3 blue t-shirts in size 12, for example, right? So you can get a lot of information really quickly. So inventory management was the original application. And from there, Rain RFID has really spread both upstream and downstream. So upstream into supply chain management, traceability within the supply chain, right from the point of manufacture, and then downstream, which we'll also talk about later on, into what happens after the item has been sold. So coming back to your original question, though, the Rain Alliance then is the industry organization which is responsible for fostering market adoption of Rain RFID. And I mentioned that Rain RFID is almost invisible to us. We don't know that we're surrounded by it. So whereas when we think about QR codes or barcodes, we all know what those are because we see them every day. They're visible. Rain RFID is really widely deployed, but we don't know it because it's invisible. So fostering market adoption and promoting the benefits of this effectively invisible technology is the goal of the RAIN Alliance. And our vision is to enable a world where trillions of things are connected simply and inexpensively. So that's really what we work on, what I work on and my team works on every day, is understanding how do we help open up new opportunities for deployment of RAIN RFID, and how do we overcome any obstacles that there may be to adoption. We've had tremendous success. The RAIN Alliance is 10 years old this year, and over that period of time, adoption has been growing at somewhere between 25 and 30% compound annual growth, which is a fantastic, healthy growth rate, to the point where in 2023, over 45 billion RAIN RFID tag chips were shipped. So if you think about that from a market penetration rate, and continued compound annual growth that's expected, there we'll be shipping 100 billion chips in 2027, 2028. So, really growing adoption, growing the use cases, and growing, of course, the benefits of RAIN RFID.
Absolutely. And two questions. First of all, the industries that are kind of part of the RAIN Alliance, which probably answers the second question. These 45 million chips, where are they located? Billion chips. Sorry, I'm always getting confused as a German with billion and million. So apologies. So where are they actually embedded in? Yeah.
Okay. So industries where RAIN RFID is deployed, honestly, Suzanne, it's pretty much everywhere. So as I mentioned, retail was the original adopter.
Yeah.
And from there, the logistics sector has also become huge. So, the big logistics companies see tremendous return on investment in the move from manual scanning, which they've had to do previously, to being able to automatically read, hundreds of things in literally a split second. So logistics is also a very large adopter. And that's the reason why I say it's RAIN RFID is everywhere. We come in contact with it many, many, many times a day, but we don't know it. But so besides those two kind of huge adopters, we also see fascinating use cases in smart manufacturing, in healthcare, in pharmaceutical, in quick serve restaurants, in the tire industry, in energy production, transportation and smart mobility, mission critical applications like space and aviation, and then kind of the opposite to mission critical applications, but really nice. RAIN RFID is very widely used in tracking races. So the professional and large amateur race events like the big marathons and big triathlon events will all be big users of RAIN RFID as well.
Yeah. Super interesting. Thank you for giving this overview, Aileen. Narrowing this down a little bit to the application of RAIN RFID chips for digital product passports, I want to go a little bit into the discussion of the products that are regulated under ESPR and the retailers that you already addressed. But maybe to get a bit more concrete on the different use cases where the RAIN RFID chips are already used today in the product itself, or in the upstream supply chain, or maybe also down the life cycle. For example, I know that you said tires. So tires is one of the product segments that are regulated under ESPR. I think we talked about cosmetics when we talked earlier, which is also a product where RFID is part of textiles. So those are all products that are regulated under the ESPR. Those are products that already carry RFID chips today. So maybe give us a few examples, maybe coming from upstream product kind of lifetime and then end of life reuse, to give us some use cases where specifically RFID chips are relevant for, you know, the digital product passport in its entirety.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that, Suzanne. So if I think about upstream, there is an increased trend towards what we call tagging at source. So put a RAIN RFID tag on an item as early as possible, like when the item is being born. And that RAIN RFID tag can remain with the item throughout its whole life. So it can be embedded in the item. I mentioned that this technology is really, really tiny. So, you know, we can not only see RAIN RFID tags embedded or attached to sort of solid items, but also when we think about textiles, actually RAIN RFID tags can be produced in a form factor which effectively can be sewn into the garment and is completely imperceptible. So it doesn't change the aesthetics. It's not visible on the item at all, and that actually is a real advantage in certain applications and for certain types of thing, if we come back to that that catch-all term. But thinking about some of the more hard, sort of solid applications first. One of the applications is in the area of the manufacturing of steel. So steel, I think, falls into the remit of digital product passport. And the manufacturing process for steel is obviously hugely energy intensive and intensive in terms of scarce resources for the planet. So, but also importantly, steel tends to be used in safety critical environments, right? So it's used in the construction industry, for example. It's used in roads. It's used in. We need to be able to rely on the strength and the performance and the durability of any steel that we're using in those kind of applications. So interestingly, RAIN RFID is one of the technologies that's used to enable us to be confident in the steel that is being used all around us. So, for example, when steel is being manufactured, first of all, sheets of steel tend to be stored outside because they're huge, and they can be stored in all kinds of weather conditions where barcodes can be difficult to read, and they can degrade because they're surface mounted. Whereas if we embed a RAIN tag in the steel, then effectively it can be read through the entire lifetime of the sheet of steel. But more importantly, RAIN RFID is actually used throughout the manufacturing process of steel. So it's used for monitoring the crucibles in which the steel is, for example, melted, to understand the temperature of the crucible and the location throughout the manufacturing process. So at the end of the process, the genealogy or the provenance information includes the temperature ranges and the exact chemistry of each piece of steel that ends up being manufactured. And then that can subsequently be used for post-mortem analyses, recalls. So if there is a structural defect in piece of steel A, you can quickly check and recall the other pieces of steel that may have been impacted by the same chemistry or by the same temperature variation in the manufacturing process. So that's one example that's really, I think, powerful in an upstream environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned provenance, which is also super relevant for other product types, right? In cosmetics, chemicals, generally, I think furniture, as well. The sources of wood is a big discussion, right?
Absolutely. So, you know, in cosmetics, for certain brands, it's really important. Authenticity is really important when we think about high-end perfume or high-end, I guess the word is cosmeceuticals, right? So the sort of crossover between the pharmaceutical ingredients that go into high-end cosmetics. So understanding the entire supply chain, the authenticity, the lack of interference, guaranteeing for some the lack of testing on animals, for example, so that the end consumer is confident that what they're buying is really what they believe that they're buying. So those are very great examples of the use of RAIN RFID. And yeah, you mentioned wood. So wood is certainly a big user of RAIN RFID. And when we think about wood being a natural product, wood swells and it shrinks, and it changes depending on its location and temperature and humidity, etc. So a technology like RAIN RFID can be designed to withstand that kind of constantly changing, sometimes harsh environment. And so traceability, both from the manufacturing process to understand where has this wood come from, and when we think about sustainable forestry initiatives, etc., that's very important. But then also the traceability all the way through the sort of circular use cases that can be opened up in terms of recycling or understanding maintenance, and also, interestingly, warranty information. So once a piece of furniture is sold, for the consumer to understand what are my rights as a consumer, how long is the warranty period, and so that also, the vendor of that product also has clearly outlined and guaranteed their responsibilities.
Yeah. So thank you for those examples upstream. I think one very interesting use case is also during the life cycle or during the lifetime of a product that you mentioned is rental. Can you explain that use case to us, please?
Yeah, so RAIN RFID is already used in the shopping experience, the consumer shopping experience in certain stores. So if you think about a smarter shopping experience that you have in stores like Decathlon and Uniqlo as great examples, kind of leading the way for RAIN deployment in the marketplace, those stores have contactless checkout. So, you just put things in your basket, and then there's no scanning, there's no individual scanning. You just put your basket is scanned in its entirety in a contactless way. So it's super efficient. We also, some of those stores also use RAIN RFID to help, because they tend to be huge warehouses. If you've ever warehouse-like retail experiences, if you've ever shopped in them. So it can be quite overwhelming to try to find the thing that you are looking for. So a lot of them have RAIN RFID enabled systems in store to help the consumer really quickly identify, oh yes, the t-shirt that I want to buy is in this location in the store, and quickly find it. But we are also seeing smarter shopping experience in certain environments where, for example, in very northern territories or territories where populations are very low, there's this concept of unmanned grocery stores, which are completely enabled by RAIN RFID. So a person only goes to those stores maybe once a day for 1 or 2 hours to make sure the critical items are stocked and correctly tagged. And beyond that, the entire consumer experience, from the point where they enter the store to the point where they leave the store with their goods, having paid for them, is completely enabled by RAIN RFID. So, this smarter shopping experience is super interesting, and I think we're going to see more of that. But you mentioned rental, and that's also a really powerful emerging use case. And people don't want to own things, and we see a drive towards everything as a service, right? Product as a service. And one of the risks, though, with with the rental or product as a service environment, one of the risks to the product owner is fraud. And I discovered this amazing statistic from NRF, the National Retail Federation in the US. In 22, they published that 10% of all returned online purchase items were fraudulent. And so it's obviously, that's a big problem when you think about the scale of consumerism and online purchasing around the world. And so using RAIN RFID not only to enable the rental process, but also as a way to guarantee that the product that comes back, whether that's from rental or whether it's from online purchasing, but making sure that it hasn't been interfered with it and it is actually the correct item is really, really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also what the European Commission is trying to promote with some of the Green Deal actions, is to go towards products as a service, because then you can make them of better quality, and you can, make repurpose, reuse, repair by design, circular products by design. So that's super that, RFID RAIN chips are enabling that actually already today. So that was a very nice example. Thank you, Aileen. And now coming to a very important kind of last area, the end of life, where we actually, the consumer is basically given away the product, but here the important stage of reuse, repair, recycling. So all our strategies are starting, and maybe give us a few examples where RFID RAIN chips are already relevant or will be relevant in the future.
Absolutely. So at the beginning of the call, Suzanne, you mentioned tires, and the tire industry is already actually a big adopter of RAIN RFID, and it's used, excuse me, for a variety of use cases, including inventory management, of course. But one of the really important emerging use cases is that of retreading. So fleet management, companies that manage fleets of vehicles, be those buses or aircraft as an example, they manage hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of vehicles around the world. And what they have found is that what the tread is the outside piece of the tire that actually kind of sticks to the ground, and that wears down, right? So we know when we take our car for its annual service, for example, one of the things that we do is we check the depth of the tread to make sure that it's legal and it's going to be okay for the weather conditions we expect in the country. When the tread goes below a certain depth, then it's no longer safe. And some in the past, a lot of those tires would have been discarded because the tread was no longer fit for the application. But it is possible to retread tires, which extends their lifetime. So in fleet management, retreading tires and using RAIN RFID to track tires through that retreading process and be able to understand this tire has now been retreaded, therefore its lifetime has been extended by X amount of miles. I found a fascinating case study where an airline was showing, by their policy is to retread tires, they are able to achieve 3 times resource efficiency and use 4 times fewer tires. Now, when we think about the scarce resources that are in those tires, right, each tire that's retread saves 30 kilos of rubber, 20 kilos of steel, and 60 kilos of CO2 emissions saved.
Amazing.
For a retread. So really impactful use case, I think.
Absolutely. And I've been working with companies in the textile industry before, where RFID chips are already today used for sorting textiles at the end of the lifetime to give them the right path to repurpose, reuse, maybe recycle, but make that decision at the point of sorting. So I think it's also important to understand that RFID, RAIN RFID chips are relevant, especially at that part of the life cycle when it comes to a recycling and repair and our strategies, and maybe not so much when the consumer is buying the product or making the buy decision, the informed buy decision of the product, but also when it comes down to actually make right decisions about recycling, repair, and so forth. So
exactly. And I think I mentioned that RAIN RFID tags can effectively be embedded in the garment. So
yeah.
I don't know if you experience this, but quite often when I've had clothes for some period of time and I go to read the laundry label, I can't, because it's, the ink has been washed off and it's faded, but I still love and use the garment, and by having the RAIN tag embedded, it can be made in a way that's durable, that withstands, many hundreds of wash cycles, certain temperature variations, etc. So using this technology means that by the end of life of the textile item, the identifier and the data related to what's in it are still be relied upon.
Yeah. Definitely one of the big advantages of RAIN RFID chips is the durability. I understand from what you're saying, and also that many can be read at once at a distance, a larger distance. I'm also thinking about the customs. We have the DPP to also check products that are coming into the European Union. So there definitely will be use cases for customs where they have to check a big pack of products that are coming in, and they probably cannot, open up the package and look at the QR code. So I think this is also an advantage of that particular technology for that use case. Eileen, we're already coming to an end of our super exciting discussion, and interesting also for me. Give us 1 or 2 minutes of the future that you see for RAIN Alliance, and also RAIN Alliance together with digital product passports. How will that impact your work and the existence of RAIN RFID chips?
Yeah, so I mentioned the trend towards embedded tags. So I think that trend is likely to continue and be a real, a very, very strong digital product passport enabler for all of us, as both from an enterprise point of view and crucially also from a consumer point of view. The RAIN RFID industry sector is already projected to continue growing over the next 5 years at sort of between 20 and 25% compound annual growth. So we already see really great growth ahead. And I think Digital Product Passport will be one of the applications and enablers for that kind of growth. And we also expect, I think, over the next number of years that RAIN readers will be in mobile phones. Maybe not every single handset around, but there is no technical impediment to that. And actually, I think like a lot of situations, once there is a technical advance, then use cases that nobody had even imagined before sort of open up and evolve. And I would really expect that to happen, but because they're unimagined use cases, I haven't even imagined them yet. But I also see that will be a game changer for us all in terms of our interaction with things in our environment.
Yeah, I learned this morning that RAIN RFID chips are using the same frequency as GSM, which is kind of the 900 frequency somewhere, and therefore it theoretically already works with all the phones today. Technically, kind of from the technical antennas that you need in a phone. So that's exciting to see coming towards us at some point in the future. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And with this, Aileen, I am closing our podcast. Thank you so much for all the insight that you gave us. And I'm looking forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks, Suzanne, for inviting me.